Hello there guys, this is Hydra 9 back for another discussion. And this is a very unique video, and again back from my original videos coming back on my channel. I was talking about I wanted to bring you some discussion, and this discussion today is going to be about auto aim in console gaming. Now a lot of people hear auto aim and they have a myriad number of thoughts. But basically, there's a huge discussion. Is the auto aim in console gaming? Which games have auto aim? How does auto aim work? Is auto aiming fair? And today I'm going to just discuss basically what I know about auto aim. I'm currently building my new PC, so I started looking into, what's the difference with targeting via mouse and targeting via a, gamepad controller, and how auto aim affects targeting in console games versus PC games. Okay, so to start out this discussion, basically what auto aim is it is a compensation mechanism for the native imprecision of a gamepad like that used for, let's say, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Okay, when you play, let's say you totally start out gaming, you don't know anything about gaming, and you do one or two things, and that is, let's say you play Halo 3 on the Xbox 360 versus Counter-Strike on the PC. What you're going to notice about these two games is that it is a lot easier to target in a console game like Halo 3 than it is to target basically in a PC game like Counter-Strike. And the reason for this is something called auto aim. Now a lot of people know this, but they debate, oh, is auto aim in Halo? Is auto aim in COD? Yes, auto aim is both in Halo and COD. I'm going to be giving you a link so you can see a visualization of auto aim. And this is probably the best video that I've found on the web that really shows what auto aim does in console gaming. So I want you to go check that out after you finish this video, and hopefully between that as the visual representation of what happens in auto aim and me talking about how auto aim works, you'll come out with a lot better understanding of how your favorite console shooters utilize auto aim to compensate for the inaccuracy of the gamer pad. Okay, so let's talk about how auto aim works. Auto aim works via two mechanisms. The first mechanism that I want to talk about is something called bending. Bending is basically when you shoot, even if your bullet is not specifically on the target but flies close enough, the bullet actually bends and hits the target. Now, obviously, your gun has to be pretty close to the target for this to work. Obviously, if you fire, at a 45-degree angle from your target, unless you have an aimbot, it is not going to hit the target. But if you're within, let's say, 5 degrees left or right of your target, bending can come into play. The second thing is something called magnetism, and this is the thing that the link in the video basically is demonstrating, and probably the biggest thing that you think of when you think of auto aim. Magnetism is basically that the reticle sticks to an opponent, okay? And in different games, it is easier and harder to visualize. It's much harder to visualize auto aim in Halo in contrast to COD. Now, obviously, the developers don't give us all the details, but one of the reasons is because in Halo, when you stop moving, according to most reports, auto aim stops working. So your reticle basically has to be moving for auto aim to work. A classic example of how auto aim works is a sniper no scope. In this, basically right before you pull the trigger or as you pull the trigger to a split second after you pull the trigger, a line is drawn, a virtual line by the game. This line is basically what auto aim does. Okay, now imagine if my head is in the middle of this line. Now imagine if the sniper bullet is to my right hand side, okay? Okay, so the actual bullet went right here, okay? But he dragged the scope across my face, okay? So the line is from these 2 points. If this line intersects my head, in Halo, you're awarded a headshot. Now, the most dramatic example of this was in Halo 2, because it had a lot of auto-aim, especially for snipers, and Reach also had quite a bit of auto-aim. Halo 3 had a lot less auto-aim, and that's why it's a lot harder to get a sniper no-scope. Okay, so you understand this line concept now. Okay, so basically, as the gun is shooting, a line is drawn as you're dragging across the face. Now, sensitivity, and a lot of people say, oh, higher sensitivity is great for no-scoping. Well, to a certain extent it is, and I'm going to explain that. With a higher sensitivity, this line can be longer. So imagine if I'm at 1 sensitivity, here's a line, because in this 5 microseconds between when I fire and when the auto-aim stops compensating, I can only get from here to here. However, if I'm on, let's say, instead of a 2 sensitivity, I'm on a 4 sensitivity, obviously this line can be a lot bigger, a lot longer, and thus auto-aim can help me more. However, in almost every Halo game, there's a point at which this mechanism stops working. To avoid everybody playing on 10 sensitivity, a general consensus, although there's no developer that I know of that actually specifically said this, most people believe auto-aim stops helping after a sensitivity of about 5 to 6, depending on the Halo. Okay, so up to that sensitivity, increasing your sensitivity increases the ability of auto-aim to compensate for the native inaccuracy of the gamepad. However, after this effect diminishes. Another thing that why playing at super high sensitivities is not good is that you have to understand that because of the inaccurate nature of the gamepad, control at these high sensitivities become a nightmare. It becomes very hard to control your reticle. And also that, think about, again, this line. This line has to go through my head. All right, on high sensitivity, it's much more likely that you're going to have a waveform-like motion, meaning your reticle is going to bounce up and down, not cross through my face, and thus not get the headshot awarded. So how does PC gaming differ from this? Well, in most PC games, or almost all of them, auto-aim is on a scale between minimal and non-existent. Let's say Counter-Strike, for instance, where there is no auto-aim. This makes firing extraordinarily difficult, and is why that if you just introduce somebody to PC gaming, the learning curve is going to be incredibly steep compared to consoles. However, the mouse, by its very nature, is a lot more precise. So, in one sense, you think, well, PC gaming is better, or that it takes more skill to do PC gaming. While a lot of people would argue that, this is kind of an inaccurate argument, because to understand how auto-aim works and fully take advantage of auto-aim takes a lot of skill, and thus console gaming does not take less skill. Or if it does take less skill, it's definitely not one of those things where it's like PC gaming is natively superior. However, kind of to contradict my previous point, I will say it in this way, and this is the best way that when I think of describing it, I can describe it. Console gaming takes less skill but is more fair. PC gaming takes more skill but is less fair. Now, these things kind of contradict each other. You would think, how can something that takes more skill be less fair? Well, because PC gaming has a much higher learning curve. This is, I believe, a very factual statement. However, because of the large range of different video cards you can buy, different monitors you can buy, different mice you can buy, different keyboards you can buy, PC gaming is by its very nature much more unfair than is console gaming, where everybody's basically playing on the same system. It's just PC gaming has a lot more factors to consider. I mean, if somebody's playing, at a resolution of, let's say, 1920 by 1080 on 3 monitors, and you're playing on, let's say, 1280 by 720 on 1, that's not really very fair. Especially if, they're getting 100 frames a second, you're getting 30. And unfortunately on PC gaming, this happens all the time. Also, different mice can have vastly different DPI, which is basically how many times they track per inch. And therefore, one mouse, I should say, can be vastly more accurate than its counterpart. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit about how auto aim works in console gaming and the differences between PC and console gaming. Without each being superior, they're just being different. PC gaming have a much higher learning curve, but being a little bit more natively unfair. Console gaming being a lot fairer, but having perhaps a little bit shorter learning curve on the beginner side. Although auto aim takes a lot of skill to be able to manipulate. So I hope this video has been informative and you've enjoyed this. If you can, please, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you know, and tell me your opinions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hydra out.